Thank you for watching my video. This is how to make a homemade tattoo machine or a jailhouse tattoo machine. You're gonna need a beard trimmer. That's off commissary for about 20 bucks. A Bic pen, a clicky pen. You gotta steal that from an officer in jail. And a number 2 pencil, mainly the eraser. Dental floss, optional dental floss depending on what you can get your hands on. And a pair of pliers, 2 pairs of pliers. Okay, they're fingernail clippers. Take a beard trimmer and dismantle it. I did it nice and pretty light, but you might have to smash it against a wall. Take the motor out. This one has a battery and a switch. That's not necessary, but it's kind of convenient. It comes with a spindle. I'm not going to use a spindle long term, but it does have one. Take your pen and take it apart. Don't throw anything away. You're going to need almost every piece but the ink cartridge itself. You do not use pen ink to make tattoos. I've been asked that a lot. If that's the ink that we use, no, it's not. It will actually give you some sort of ink poisoning. Use your fancy pliers to remove the tip of the ballpoint pen. You need that out of the way so the needle will travel through the tip of the body. This becomes your barrel for your tattoo machine. Now once you get it apart, clean it thoroughly. Usually you can get your hands on bleach or alcohol wipes while you're in jail. I'm sure at home you can have all kinds of cleaning supplies. Make sure it's nice and clean. This is your barrel tip. Take your pin body and cut it down to size. Size will depend on your hand and your needle length. Use your dental floss and twist it up into a cutting rope. Now, I didn't twist this enough. It requires a lot of twisting, and I'm not going to sit here on video for 10-15 minutes twisting it just so I could show you. Have a buddy hold the pin body while you cut it. Now you have your tattoo barrel. Take your cap and apply heat right here, right at the joint. You're going to use a candle to do this, and I'll show you how to make a candle maybe later. But you need to heat it up so it won't break. You need a nice clean bend, and if you heat it up, it stays rigid once it cools down. It's pretty important. Use your fancy cutting rope again and cut the cap right at the clear line, right about meow, right meow. Now you have an adapter to your motor. Take your barrel, take your pen cap, do not push it all the way in. Put your tip in there, don't push that all the way in. You're actually going to use those for depth adjustments on your needle itself. Take your motor and get it ready to mount. Sometimes the shafts are pretty long, you got to cut them down. Now, I was able to cut it down fairly easily here, but in jail I've had to grind it on concrete and steel bunks for hours. Take the spindle, you're going to have to cut this little titty off and make sure it has a hole in it for the needle to go into. The shorter this assembly is, the more compact it is, the easier it'll be to handle and kind of, well, hide. Take your adapter, mount it to your motor. You can use anything as far as rubber bands, shoelaces, tape. I've used threads from bed sheets. Dental floss actually works. Probably one of the best. But I had rubber band. Now the rubber band actually broke, and that's why I don't always suggest them, but it was convenient and I'm not focused on long-term use. Make sure it's as tight as possible. That way there's no movement in the adapter because you don't want any movement in your machine. Any movement can lead to imperfections. And when you're dealing with ink and permanent marks on people's skin, it's a factor. Take your barrel tube assembly, put it into the adapter. This adapter also becomes another way to adjust the needle depth. And now you have a tattoo machine. Find how it sits on your hand, see if it's comfortable. Comfort is everything because this thing takes hours to work with. Take your contraband pin, take it apart, and take the spring out of it. Now you may have to pull a guard to get one of these or steal one from a guard, but you need the spring. Shout out to my buddy Tom for photobombing my movie. That's a good buddy of mine, came out to hang out for a bit. Use your fancy pliers. Might need 2 pliers. I suggest 2 pliers. Okay, you're going to need 2 pliers. And pull your spring apart. Now, you don't need heat. It takes a lot of effort to straighten it out. But I use heat. And in jail, we use candles. I'll show you how to make a candle maybe later on. I use these fancy pliers because I have them at my access. And they just make it that much easier. Pull the spring apart a little bit just so you can get a good grip with both pliers. And I'm going to use this fancy butane torch, and it's going to straighten this thing out, no problem. Now you may think, how do you make a candle in gel? How do you start a fire? There are plenty of ways to start fires in gel. Now the problem is that there's smoke detectors everywhere, and if you get caught starting a fire, it's a possible arson charge. But if you're already pulled over, you can't really pull over any further. What do you have to lose? Now you can see the needle straight, or the spring is straightening out. It's going to make 2 really nice needles. If you have someone with really small hands, you can even cut that in thirds and make 3 needles out of 1 spring. I have fairly large hands, so I like a longer setup. It's just more comfortable, and comfort, once again, is everything. Last little heat treatment to get the imperfections out. I mean, I'm sure there's some guy that could explain all the forging technicalities and stuff, but let's be real. Nobody cares. Boom. Straight piece of wire. Now, we have to cut it. I happen to have some fancy cutting pliers, and I'm going to use them. No, not those ones. These ones. Yes. Cut them equal length. Now, you may have to use the fingernail clippers. It will destroy the fingernail clippers doing it, but they're like 80 cents off commissary, and they're probably pretty fogged by this point. Now you have 2 needles. Those are worth 10 bucks a piece in jail, so if you want to make some money, that's a quick way to do it. We got to remove this little nipple. Once again, it's in the way, and I really wouldn't use this spindle anyway, but I'm going to try to use. Clip. Done. It's gone. There's a little hole behind it. That's where I'm going to put the needle through to allow it to oscillate up and down. Now, it leaves a little hook there. You got to straighten that hook out and make it a 90-degree angle, a nice L shape. That way the L-shaped portion can go into the spindle, and you have a nice clean joint so when it spins around it doesn't get caught on anything or bound up. A smoother a machine runs, the better it's going to perform, the less batteries it's going to consume. And when you're using batteries where you can only buy them once a week and you're doing a lot of work, which we were doing a lot of work, it made a difference. drop it in the barrel, give it a couple taps. You don't want to force it down in there, because if it's a sharpened needle and if it goes down there and it's binding up on something, you're forcing it, you're going to blunt the tip of the needle. Any imperfections in the needle can cause severe trauma to the skin. You don't want that. You want it to punch in and pull out very easily. Now, I like to run the whole needle through it just so if I can feel any binding or any dragging through the tip itself. This one feels fine. I'm also not big on metal tips. It's kind of a primitive way. This is a metal tip. I'll show you how to make a bird mouth maybe in another video. Lock your needle into your spindle, and now you can see as it rolls around, it oscillates up and down. Boom, you're almost ready to blast some ink. Now you notice it's a really short stroke. It shouldn't be that short. That's too short. That's why I replaced the spindle in the video. I wasn't happy with it. But you have adjustments. You have an adjustment in this middle body, the tip itself, as well as in the adapter. Now, I've seen people cut those tubes really short and they don't have any adjustment there. I always plan ahead. We have a fully functioning tattoo machine, even with a convenient switch. Now, use your pencil and grab the eraser off of it. That's really all you need for this. Use your eraser as a sharpening tool. Take your needle and poke it through your eraser. Now in this video I use emery boards. You can get emery boards in jail and in prison on commissary because we've got to have nice pedicure, manicure hands in jail, you know. But you can get them. Now I've used radios. They got AM/FM radios. If you break those apart, they have a stone inside of it for the antenna. The stone inside actually makes another really great sharpener. Matter of fact, almost better. It lasts forever. Take your index finger and press down on the tip of the needle, and use your middle finger, press down on the eraser, and roll the eraser around while you're pressing down on the emery board and the tip. That's going to have it create a really circular round, a really good tip on the needle. Let's put it that way. I like to test it. I like to poke it through my skin, and if it seems to drag or how much pressure it takes to push it through, the easier it goes in, the easier it goes through, the less it rips, obviously the better it's going to be. I like to attach a string right here, a little piece of dental floss. It silences the needle. These things can get pretty loud, and you know, when you're not trying to cause attention to yourself, well, that's important. This is a piece of plastic I cut off of a deodorant cap. You can get those anywhere. And I used the fingernail clippers to cut it out. No, I didn't. I used the pliers. But you can use the fingernail clippers. And I'm taking the torch or a candle and heating up the other needle. And I'm poking a hole in the center of it. And I'm poking a hole just off center. This is going to be my new hub or my new spindle. Now, they work really great because it's a plastic that lasts a long time. It doesn't have a lot of weight to it, so it doesn't slow the motor down. And it's replaceable and cheap. Now, you got to mount it on the shaft of the motor. I didn't quite get it the first time because I didn't want to overcook the motor with the butane torch. So I didn't get a good stab on the first try. I checked it after I put it on. It didn't go all the way through. So it ended up falling off after I put a little pressure on it. Yeah, recall.
It's like I'm 17 again, peach fuzz on my face. Looking on the case, trying to find a hella taste. Oh my God, I'm on the chase. Chevy is getting kind of heavy. Irrelevant selling it.
All right, second stab, takes, goes on, fits nicely, nice grip. When they cool down, they grip it really well. They'll last for hours. You can get 300-400 hours out of that spindle, and it just keep poking more holes in it if it wears out. Put it all back together, and look at that. We got a fully functioning tattoo machine. Now this is a single needle apparatus. It takes a long time to do any kind of work, but it's very fine work. Take it for a drive. Should do nicely.